Harriet Tubman, Chapter 3, Dreams of Freedom. When Minty was a teenager, she was still working on the Broadus plantation, hauling heaps of hay, picking prickly cotton that brought blisters to her skin, washing the master's dirty underpants, and peeling onions and doing any other labor her owners demanded. Her days started as soon as the sun rose and didn't end until long after the same sun, tired from its hard work, set for the night. Sometime around 1835, Minty was hired by a man named Barrett. Her job was to work the crops to be harvested. One day, while tending to her duties, she noticed a black man named Robert, one of Barrett's enslaved workers, leaving the fields without permission. The overseer, the boss whose job it was to watch the workers, spotted Robert and followed him. Minty was close behind. She was curious to see if Robert was trying to get free and how he would do it. Robert had only made it to the town store when the overseer caught up to him, pulled out a whip, and raised it high. He was good and ready to beat Robert. Before the overseer flung his whip to Robert's back, Minty blocked him so Robert could run, and run he did with Minty close behind. The overseer grabbed a lead weight, hurling it at where's the picture? Man. It missed the runaway, but instead, bam, hit Minty in the forehead. That word bam, what is that an example of? What kind of figurative language? Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. The sound of the word is the noise that it makes. She bled and cried and prayed she wouldn't die. Old Rit and old Ben prayed too as they nursed their daughter back to health again. Minty fell into a coma, which is a long sleep that never seemed to end. She stayed unconscious through the long, dark winter. Come spring, Minty's coma ended. Flowers and trees started to bloom, so did Minty's strength. The wound from the lead weight had left a dent in her forehead. Its puckered scar made Minty more committed than ever to do what it took to gain her freedom. Minty's injury had brought on a sickness that folks called the sleeping disease. It was a problem that would stay with Minty her whole life. Anytime, anywhere, with no warning, Minty could fall into a deep sleep and not wake up until the sleeping spell wore off. It could last a few hours, a whole day, or longer. To make matters worse, Minty had to put up with pounding headaches. Master Broadus showed no sympathy. To him, Minty was now damaged property, and he was eager to sell her to anyone who'd pay a decent price. But nobody wanted to purchase a worker who could fall asleep at any moment. In 1844, Minty found a bit of happiness when she married John Tubman, a free black man who had never been enslaved. She took John's last name, and it was around this time that Minty told people to call her Harriet to honor her mother. But Harriet's joy did not last long. Even though John was free, Harriet was still enslaved by law. Soon, John started to turn on Harriet, treating her like she was his slave. Harriet would not allow her husband to crush her spirit. It was bad enough that she was owned by the Broadus family, but now the man she married was acting like her master. Not only did he insist that Harriet wash, cook, and clean for him, he did not like how outspoken his wife was becoming. Harriet was beginning to voice her opinions about the ugly ways of slavery and how much she disliked John's way of making her feel small by demanding she work for him. Whenever Harriet got to talking about escaping to freedom, John was quick to stomp down on her dream. He threatened his wife by letting her know that he'd go straight to Master Broadus and tell on her if she ran away. That's when Harriet Tubman made an important decision. She would keep her longing for freedom locked down deep inside her, where John couldn't reach it. When Harriet and John had been married for about 5 years, Master Broadus called everyone together on his property to share a heap of bad news. He had fallen into debt. That means he owed a lot of money. The only way he could save himself from ruin was to sell the men and women who he owned as slaves. The first to be sold were 2 of Harriet's sisters, Master brought his overseer, put chains on each one, and sent them to separate locations in what was known as cotton country. The southernmost states where the grisliest masters lived. What do you think grisliest means? Do you know what a grizzly bear is? Are they sweet and kind? The grisliest masters lived, and where enslaved people feared they'd be forced to go. So it doesn't say what grisliest means, but you can use context clues thinking of what a grizzly bear is to decide the meaning. Cotton country got its name from the abundance of cotton crops that grew in that region. With her beloved sisters gone, Harriet was more focused than ever on making her dream of freedom come true for herself and others.